In July of 1991, the quiet of a Milwaukee apartment complex was abruptly interrupted by a late-night police dispatch. When officers arrived at the home of Jeffrey Dahmer, the evidence they discovered in the first few minutes sent an immediate shock through the department. As they took Dahmer into custody, the responding officers realized they were stepping into a hidden, prolonged nightmare. Investigators were left to determine the contents of the apartment and exactly how long this predator had operated without detection. The 1991 arrest served as the horrific endpoint of a 13-year period where his crimes had gone entirely unnoticed. Inside the residence, forensic teams began the grueling work of documenting a space that had been used as a private slaughterhouse. While cataloging the evidence, they uncovered the scale of the dismemberment, finding human remains in multiple locations throughout the apartment. The discovery included physical proof of necrophilia and cannibalism, leading the public to refer to him as the Milwaukee Cannibal. This chart shows evidence mapping. Investigators used specific artifacts found in 1991, on the right, to fill in profiles of missing persons from previous years, on the left. Forensic teams sorted through volumes of data, matching biological evidence to cold cases across the 1980s. This cross-referencing eventually confirmed a total of 17 victims, including men and boys. The high density of physical evidence indicated that Dahmer's methods were calculated, turning his private residence into a macabre archive. With the victims identified, police used the forensic timeline to track the escalation of his crimes. This bar chart shows the frequency of his murders from 1978 to 1991. The victims are heavily clustered in the final years before the arrest. There is a noticeable gap between the late 1970s and the spike in the late 1980s. In criminal psychology, this is known as a cooling-off period, a dormant phase where the offender returns to a normal routine between killings. The timeline eventually reaches back to its absolute origin, the first murder committed in 1978. That single 1978 event was eventually linked to the massive collection of forensic evidence found 13 years later. By reverse engineering the spree from the 1991 evidence, the investigation exposed how a predator was able to operate for over a decade without being caught. Following the reconstruction of the timeline, the forensic investigation gave way to the legal proceedings in Milwaukee. As the full 13-year spree and the gruesome details of the apartment were presented in open court, the public reacted with shock. The case highlighted significant gaps in the era's interdepartmental communication and the tracking of missing persons. The trial forced a public confrontation with the extreme nature of the crimes, specifically the documented acts of necrophilia and cannibalism. The 1991 investigation provided closure for 17 families and documented the full extent of a 13-year period of undetected violence.